They think it's all over. It is now. Do you remember that hilarious moment in Only Fools and Horses and that joke about Trigger's broom? Trigger, of course, is a road sweeper, and he proudly announces that he's had the same broom for 20 years, except after further questioning from Del Boy, he reveals the broom's had 17 new heads and 14 new handles in its time, therefore not the same broom. A fair metaphor for Liz Truss's tenure at number 10, which has seen so many U-turns it's now unrecognisable as her premiership, which is why the Tories have no choice now but to sweep her out of office. Liz Truss's bold plan for growth was a rare, historic opportunity to transform Britain into being a low-tax, high-growth, high-productivity economy, a global hub of innovation and a global magnet for investment. It was the right budget under the wrong leadership. The International Monetary Fund conceded that the mini-budget would give the UK the strongest growth next year in the whole of the G7. By binning the tax cuts and sacking her Chancellor, Britain has signed up for a longer and deeper recession and the continuation of the status quo for the foreseeable future. Britain, a great country, but set on a path of mild, long-term decline. Not so much a race to the bottom as a slow shuffle. Truss and Kwarteng get 10 out of 10 for policy, but 0 out of 10 for delivery. It was clearly foolhardy and naive not to win the approval of the Office for Budget Responsibility, whose support would have protected the pound from the kicking it received. A failure of sequencing, a failure of politics, a failure of communication. But what hurts, the real kicker, is that this budget was the right thing to do. Don't take my word for it. Bloomberg reports that the top US bank Goldman Sachs have downgraded the UK's growth outlook, after the government's tax U-turn. Well done, everyone. For me, this lost opportunity has parallels with the pandemic, when Sweden went it alone, much to the shock and bafflement of other Western nations. Countries like Britain, Germany, France and Spain looked on in horror as Sweden ignored the pack mentality, which saw most of the world plunged into ruinous and failed lockdowns. The Swedes kept their heads. They kept with their approach, and with a lower per capita COVID death rate than many countries that locked down hard, like Britain and Germany, Sweden won the argument. They kept their schools open, businesses traded as usual, and they suffered a fraction of the economic and societal cost. So just a few weeks ago, there was a glimmer of hope that Britain would go it alone economically, rejecting the centre-left European social democratic orthodoxy of tax and spend, of big state, big debt and low growth. But that ship has passed. You know you're in trouble when the best thing that many people can now hope for is a Labour government. I'll be dealing with them in my Take at 10 at the top of the next hour. But for now, we've got to deal with Liz Truss. For me, that press conference on Friday was the day the music died. A fumbling and robotic performance that contained more pauses than a Harold Pinter play and was more awkward than Holly and Phil at a queuing convention. Friday was the moment when Liz Truss had to put on a bravura performance, when she had to rise to the occasion and when she had to demonstrate that she owns this. Instead, she got owned. Look away now if you are of a sensitive disposition.
I'll now take questions. Thank you very much, everybody.
Prime Minister, are you going to say sorry?
Sorry seems to be the hardest word. But with the appointment of zero-COVID authoritarian Jeremy Hunt as Chancellor, it's very clear that our Prime Minister is now owned by the international bond markets, owned by her own backbenchers, owned by the media, and owned by her own Chancellor, who's being characterised as the chief executive of the government with Truss as chairman. Yikes. A bit like a Premier League chairman offering the dreaded words of support for an under-pressure manager. On Breakfast TV today with the excellent Laura Koonsberg, Jeremy Hunt gave Liz Truss the ultimate kiss of death by saying the Prime Minister is in charge. You know about leadership, folks. When you're in charge, you don't need people to say you're in charge. Liz Truss's entire campaign to become leader was based on cutting taxes and stimulating growth, but it's all turned to dust. The top-rate tax cut attracting wealthy people and high achievers to this country to pay their taxes here, to invest here and to spend their money here, gone. The corporation tax cut to support businesses, shorten the recession and protect jobs, gone. There's even talk of the 1p income tax rate cut, putting money in the pockets of hard-pressed Brits as they face high interest rates and rising bills, gone. Which is why the only solution now is Liz Truss gone. If she stays, the question won't be about whether Keir Starmer can win a majority in the House of Commons. The question will be the size of his majority. The Tories are in a death spiral. A libertarian, low-tax, free market vision for the country is now dead, and with it, Truss's political career. For every day she stays, she inflicts more damage on her party and more damage on the country. It didn't have to be this way, and I wish it wasn't this way. But Liz Truss's position is now completely untenable, and a new leader must come in who supports a less ambitious but perhaps more cautious economic agenda. Because the alternative is Keir Starmer in number 10. If you think things are bad now, just wait for a Labour government, propped up by votes from the SNP and Corbynite backbenchers. Forget about lengthy leadership battles. The Tories must set aside their differences, act in the national interest and select one candidate around whom they can unite, to be installed straight away. Poor King Charles. Oh dear, oh dear. I know we've been here before and many cannot stand him. But if you have any hope of catching Starmer, for me, Rishi Sunak is the only show in town. Don't get me wrong, he's got more baggage than Terminal 3 at Heathrow. The green card fiasco, a billionaire tax-avoiding wife. And many see him as a terrifying globalist puppet in the pocket of the World Economic Forum. I heard him described online today as Rishi Trudeau. Harsh. Also, he's seen as the guy that stabbed Boris in the back. He's too rich, too slick, too corporate. But show me a better candidate to take on Labour. He predicted the economic carnage that has befallen us, giving him the credibility, politically and economically, Truss now lacks. Put it like this. Who do you want running the country? Here's the choice. Rishi Sunak. Jeremy Hunt. Jez we can. Keir Starmer. Wee Nicola Sturgeon. Welcome to hell. For what it's worth, I believe Sunak would have gone on a tax-cutting spree too. He just would have waited 1 year. But whoever it is, Britain cannot wait for a new Prime Minister. Liz Truss must resign this week. It's a simple choice in my view, a dignified departure on her own terms or a bloody regicide. Jump or be pushed. And we know the Tory party, they're not too posh to push. Trapped in an endless political winter, Disney princess Liz Truss has been frozen out. And Kwarteng frozen too. Liz, let it go.